Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Logic from Logic Camp. Today we want to talk about CSS position property. How do we use it? We have static, relative, absolute, fixed, and sticky. So how do we use this? So I've prepared some goodies using my text editor. So I have the HTML file here, I have the style sheet here. So I'm going to get rid of this. So this will be available in the description. So a link to this file will be available in the description, so you can just go there, clone it, and let's continue. Now I'm going to show you what I have here. I'll right click. So I'm using Sublime Text. You can go ahead and use any text editor of it. I have this now. So we want to use this to see how position works in CSS. So by default, all the elements, they are in static position. That is by default static. So let me just quickly list out what we are doing. So if I open up my notepad, I go to format, fonts. Come on. Okay, so I make this bigger. That's 48. So we're going to be looking at static, then we're going to be looking at relative, then we are going to be looking at absolute, fixed, and lastly we're going to be looking at sticky. So by default everything is static. So this static means that the serial arrangements in our documents, so you can see that at first we have the body, then we have this, then we have the paragraph tag. So we have this h1 first that says AFOX. Let's do CSS position. So the next we have the paragraph that says it's not in serious, but it's very important to learn. Then we have this parent tag, this position parent. So inside the position parent we have the first child, second child, third child, and the fourth child. So if I open up my browser, we still have the same arrangement. AFOX is not in serious, first, second, third, fourth, then we have all this text. So everything is in orderly manner, like the way you have them in your documents. So that is how you are going to say that is static. So let's look at relative. So if I go back to my, so let's go back to our text editor. So let's take this first child, and before I do that, I've applied some style to this position parent. So if you open up the CSS file, you're going to see the position parent. So we have margin 0 auto, so it can come to the center, while the width is 600 pixels, so it is actually small and it will come to the center. But for us to see that, let's pass in background. So let's go 545454. So if I come here and refresh, okay, so this is the position parents. So this is what we'll have. This is the width. So I have also set the div tag that hold, the children. I've also set them to margin 0 auto and width of fit content and margin bottom, so as to create some spacing before the next one. So if I set the first child, I say first child, do I use, okay, no, sorry. So first child, if I set the position to relative, okay, so if I refresh, nothing is going to happen. So simply because it is just, we only lose the static, what should I call it, the static chain. So it's no more static now. So that means we can move it around anywhere you want it to go. So like I can position it to the left or position it to the right now. So it just depends on how I want to use it. I can shift it down a bit, but it is going to be relative to the parents, so it can't go beyond this origin from here to here, from here to here, and from up here to here. So that means from this x-axis and the y-axis, it can't go beyond that, beyond these 600 pixels. It can't go beyond that. So simply because it is only relative in reference to its parent. So let's put that into action. So you see, by default, the top left, I mean the left side, is 0, but simply because I've moved this to 0 also, so that is why it's in the middle. So if I remove that, so it's just going to be here. So when you add any tag or any element, it's going to position to the left and sticky. So this left now, I can now say something like, okay, to the relative, I can now say something like left, then I make it 10 pixels. So if I go left 10 pixels and refresh, so you can see that this shifted a bit. You might not really see the changes, so let's just make it 100 pixels of 600 pixels, so 100 pixels. Okay, so you can see that we can now move this, we can now position this anyhow we want to use it. So if I say top 40 pixels, so you can see you can see that, let's make the top like something like 300 pixels, so we'll actually see what we are doing. You can see that now we can position it anyhow you want, and it's not going to affect other siblings. So it's just going to be moving on its own, but inside the parents, inside this origin, is not going to pass this place. It is not going to pass this place. So that is relative. So relative to the parents, reference to the parents, is not going to pass the boundary. So that is relative. Okay, so if I take this back, just like remove it, then if I refresh that, or let me quickly show you something. So if I refresh back, so you can see that it is inside the parents. So that is relative. So let me take this back and say something like position absolute. If I set this to absolute and refresh, okay, now you can see that we are having it here. That means it is still on the same position, but the second element has taken the first place. Why? That is because this has been referenced to the roots document. So if I want to confirm that, if I set the left to 0, then I set the top to 0, that means it should be positioned to 0 on the x-axis of its parents and 0 again on the y-axis. So I said that, so you can see that we have it at the top here. So if I want to be referenced to the parents, to be positioned inside the parents, just like the relative, so I have to set the parents. So this is the position parent. I have to say something like position, then set the parent to relative on its own. So if this is set to relative, then this is going to be referencing this instead of talking to the main root element. So if I refresh that, you can see that we have 0 0. So if I set it to 100 pixels and refresh, so from left it's going to take 100 pixels from left. So if I say again from right, take 100 pixels from right, so we still have 100 pixels from right. So what this is actually telling us is that for relative, it can only manage within the origin, within the parent's origin, but for absolute it can go out there, at the same time it can maintain inside. So I can, if I didn't set the parent to relative, that means I can use this outside anywhere. Probably I want to do something like a live chat button, so that's going to be here, right here. So I can just set the bottom instead of setting the top. Now I'll set the bottom to 0. So if I refresh that, okay, so we still have this relative. We still have this set to relative, so I can remove that and refresh the browser. So we have this here now. So we have this here now. So if I set the left to 0, so that means it's going to be positioned here. So this is 0 0. So if I want it to be this side, that means I have to set, instead of left, I have to set right to 0. So it's going to be position 0 here. So if I refresh, so we have it right here. But one thing about absolutes is that whatever position you set it to, it is going to maintain that as you are scrolling up and down. So it will maintain that position. Can you see that? Can you see that? So probably, let's say from up down, let's say this is like 90 view height. Let's say this is like 90 or 100. So I think it's 100 because of some margin and all that. So that's why it's like, so let's say this is 100 now. So it's going to maintain that 100. It is not going to add or remove. But the only thing is that it can manage within the parent and including the root element, while relative can only be positioned moving around inside the roots, inside the parent element, inside the parent origin. So let's get rid of this and let's set this to, but for now we are going to leave this as absolute. Then I'm going to take the second child, then I'll set the position to fixed. Now before I refresh, let's talk about how fixed work. So we said that relative can only manage inside the parent, while absolute can manage both outside and inside the parent. So that means it can reference the root element, it can also reference the parent. So the same thing goes with the fixed property. It can manage with the root element, it can only reference the root element. No matter how you set the parent tag to relative, it will only be referencing to the root element that is fixed. So if I refresh that, you can see that we have our Facebook, it has changed position. So if I set the left to something 0 and top to something 0 again, so that means I'm going to have it here. So one thing about this is that as I am scrolling, it is going to maintain the angle to just stay there. It won't move. So this is absolute. Now absolute will still be moving with the page. It will only reference the location. It will maintain the location. But for fixed, it's just going to maintain the angle. It's just going to stay the wherever you put it. It's not going to be moving with the page. So this is referencing the root element. Okay, so we have everything back now. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to pass in margin 0 auto just to make this come to the center back. Okay, so we have it here. Now let me quickly do something. So let me create a div here and give it a class name of armsticky. So inside the armsticky, so I am sticky. So inside this place, I want to pass hello there. I am sticky. Okay, so let's just do this. So if I go back to the page and refresh that, so we are going to have this. Now let's style this, so we'll see what we are doing. So if I do something like class, I'm sticky, then if I say padding of 5 pixels, then let me grab this background here. Let me say background 182612. okay, so let me just get rid of this. Okay, so we have this now. So if I refresh, so we should have it like this. So text color, oh my god, white. Okay, so we have it like this. So but what we are talking about is whenever this gets focused, whenever you scroll to this, like this is, so I'm currently on this element now. Whenever you scroll to this should get the position should set to fixed at this point. Position should set to fixed. And what other, so the position should set to the position should set to fixed whenever you scroll to this. So whenever I'm here, the position should set to fixed. So let's put that in action. So if I say something like position, okay, let me quickly correct something. Okay, so let's just go. So if I say sticky, okay, so if I refresh that, now let's go. Okay, we might not really see anything. You know, when we set this to relative, for us to see the effects, we have to either set the left to something, or to move from right, or to move from top, or from bottom. So now let's set the top of this to 0. Okay, so now let's refresh again. So let's scroll again. So you can see that. So whenever I scroll, to the element, it's going to get fixed at that point. So that will be all on CSS position. I hope you guys enjoy it. So if you enjoy the section, you can just subscribe to the channel and also put down comments if you have any question, so I'm going to attend to it. Thank you.